Think ISO 27001 is just an IT thing. Think again. In this episode, we break down the fundamentals of ISO 27001, the global standard for information security, and explain why it's essential for every business in 2025. You'll learn what ISO 27001 is really about, the biggest mistakes companies make, why it's not just about technology, how to build trust with clients and regulators, and how to get started with limited resources. If you're a leader, founder, IT manager, or just want to protect your business from costly data loss, this one's for you. So, Ian, thanks for joining us. If you want to just give a little introduction to yourself.
So, my name's Ian Shorten. I'm an independent information security consultant, sometime quality management systems consultant as well. Started out about 20 years ago with doing some internal auditing and some quality management type roles. And then I moved to a certification body where I was a full-time auditor. And then I jumped the fence to become a consultant as well. So I've been helping organizations implement their management systems, but also doing audits and that. And for the past few years, I've been doing that for myself as a brain for rent expert, trainer, auditor, consultant, and so on. So that's pretty much what I do now.
Yeah, because I know we've obviously rented your brain quite a bit recently to get our accreditation. So that'll be an ongoing relationship.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about 27001, kind of the fundamentals of it, really, not going too deep, just to make people aware of what it is, because it is a growing standard, isn't it? It's very, very, very prolific.
It is popular, and it's becoming more popular as well, I think. So it'll be interesting to see where it ends up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, standard's been around for a few years, hasn't it? But it's obviously just gone through a transition.
As an ISO standard, it started in 2005, but prior to that, it grew out of being a UK national standard, so it was a British standard before that. And it's grown up alongside the evolution of information as a key asset and information security being a concern. Yeah, it's been around a fair while.
But now I think with all the emerging technologies, it's now gaining credibility, isn't it? Credibility is probably
emerging technologies and the transparency of the kind of things that go wrong as well. I think it's always on the news, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, at the moment. Okay, so for those new to ISO 27001, how do you explain what it is and what is it?
Okay. But for the completely uninitiated, it's a management system standard. And that means it's about the organizational arrangements for managing a thing, a discipline, we might call it. So it's about the organizational structure and processes around managing the security of information. And we'll probably go into a bit of what that means exactly. But it's about having what I like to think of as a framework or a skeleton of structure around organizing activities associated with a particular thing. And this thing is about information management and its safety and security.
Okay. Yeah, because I think some people wrongly assume it's just for IT companies, isn't it?
Yeah. And to be fair, it probably, because it's information management and everybody relies on their IT is going to be involved a lot in the activities of an information security management system, but not entirely. And it's about the organization itself, the people, the hierarchies, the structures, the arrangements, and all of that kind of thing.
Okay. So what kind of data or information are we really trying to protect when we say information security?
Well, everybody, all organizations, I think, whether they're private companies or public sector, they all rely on information, I think, to operate a business. I can't think of any kind of industry or business that doesn't rely on information, because you need to know things. But I suppose most people think of the information that they need, that they're managing about people. Privacy has been a big story over the last almost 10 years, I suppose, worrying about people's data security or privacy. So there's that, and that's part of it, because 27001 is about privacy and cybersecurity and information security. Other information that organizations need, the kind of things that you need to operate a business, to take decisions. Perhaps it could be intellectual property, but it could be anything, really. It could be any kind of information. The difficult question is really, well, what is information?
Yeah.
And that is a kind of philosophical level of question, but it's often people think that that's data or data, if you like, and it can be that. It can be, and then that's information in an electronic format or numerical format. It's called data, but it's any other kind of information, the things that you can know and learn and understand and communicate with and about. That's all information. And
So it's not just the documented, it's the
not
stuff that you're
necessarily,
holding
no.
in your head. Okay.
It could be things in your head, yeah. Your knowledge is information, right? So,
It's interesting. Yeah, that is a more philosophical, I think, isn't it? But
yeah,
it's an interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, how do you protect that?
yeah, yeah. And also, I think that there's an understanding that there are laws around that kind of thing as well, not just privacy, but intellectual property as well is another thing, which is about information and knowledge and protecting that. So organizations think about it in the sense of, well, I've seen that some shoe company that's been around for 150 years just went out of business because they were breached in some kind of criminal hack. But also, I don't want somebody else in some other part of the world to steal my designs and make something that I'm trying to do more cheaply, or that kind of thing as well. So there's protection on all kinds of levels, and we need to think about those things.
I see a lot of organisations now have Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus. How's that different to 27001 then? What's the difference? Why would you maybe go for both or one or the other?
You can go for both. And Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus, UK government scheme, and it's just basic cyber hygiene things that you should do, and they're sensible things to do, of course. And it's a scheme for which you can have a recognition that you've done those things, but it's based on completing a form type self-assessment. Or if it's the plus version, it includes some kind of external penetration testing of your network. So yeah, it's an easier, perhaps a first step kind of thing to do. And the government and government agencies sometimes ask for Cyber Essentials as a minimum to be involved in doing business with them, certainly at the technical level, if there's any kind of interconnection going on. But it has no certification scheme as such, which would have an auditor come and provide assurance to checking that the management system is in place. It's not even a management system scheme, the Cyber Essentials. Whereas ISO 27001 would kind of put that framework around it that I talked about and incorporate that into a structured and assurable way of doing things.
So 27 is a bit broader as well, isn't it? So
Very
Cyber
broad.
Essentials focuses on your IT controls, cyber controls.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
27, like you say, is broader, what's in your head and visitors entering your premises. It's kind of a broader standard, isn't
and
it?
it's much more considered. It's not, whereas Cyber Essentials is where you've got to have your access management, you've got to have network security, you've got to do password management, those kind of things. It doesn't consider how much and why and to what extent and for what systems. So it's very much a list of things to do rather than a consider what you need to do and plan how you achieve your objectives.
Why is 27 becoming more critical now than ever?
I think primarily the reason is that the organizations are so interdependent, and then people think about their supply chain or the other organizations that they partner with, and those with whom they share information or rely on the provision of information or information management services like the Internet of Service, everything as a service nowadays. The cloud is sometimes called. And so people are concerned about what other people are doing when they're connected or when they have access or they have custody of their information, and look for some kind of assurance about how do I know that they're safe? Am I safe putting it's like your money in your bank, is it a safe bank, or, it's the same kind of thing, but it's information, I'm giving it to another company. Are they safe with it? And having an ISO 27001 system in place and certification of that system by an independent who can check it. That's one. I think that's the primary driver at the moment. But also there's an element of the necessity of it when you see, as like I said, people going out of business is on the news every day, or some organization has been hacked and flights have been cancelled and people are losing their jobs because of some kid on the internet or some criminal gang who's doing something somewhere else to try and extort money. The level of consciousness about that kind of thing has risen, I think. So that's another reason why sensible organizations are going to think about what can I actually do to protect myself.
Yeah, I don't want to be on the news.
No,
Or in
you don't
prison,
want to be
because
the
obviously
one.
there's legal implications now
There
as
could
well.
be, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I know
Or having
something.
that huge fine, perhaps,
Yeah,
from a
exactly.
regulator of some sort.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So can you walk us through the main concepts of sort of 27001, the main elements that people need to be aware
Sure.
of?
So a management system, I'll start with just a basic management system, which begins with understanding the organization and what it needs to be and what it needs to achieve. So what we call a context, and understanding issues that need to be thought about, things that need to be addressed, and who are the stakeholders and what do they want, what do they need. An understanding of the organization, which leads to a determination of what do we need a management system for and where do we need it to fit and what are the potential things that we need to plug into that. And then a decision to define a management system, to set an overall strategy for that through a high level policy, assign responsibilities for people to do things and to lead it, and then go ahead and plan what needs to happen. So the planning part comes from understanding all of the things which plug into the management system. And then it's about completing the plan and operating that and monitoring its performance and trying to improve that, and also fixing when anything goes wrong. Plan, do, check, act kind of way. The thing about the information security management system, is specific to that general idea, which I just presented, is that in the heart of that, in the planning and operation of it, is the idea of information security risk management. And so understanding what our information is, what are the potential harms that can befall it, and what do we need to do to try and prevent them, detect them, and react to them if they happen, is the core element of an information security management system. And alongside ISO 27001 has a big list of controls in it. And should perhaps explain what a control is. In ISO terminology, it's a measure that modifies risk. It means it's something that you do to change the risk, typically to reduce the level of risk, to try and make it lower, so it's less likely to happen, or if it does happen, it's less impactful. So having some controls in there, and there's a list of controls in ISO 27001. So you have these controls to try and reduce the level of risk, to not to eliminate them, not to wipe them out completely, but to reduce them to something which is acceptable,
Yeah.
and importantly, known, I think, is the thing. So it's actually about identifying, yeah, we do know there's a risk. We're doing something about that, and we know what we're doing. We know that it's working.
Got you. So how would someone identify the risks? That's
Now,
that's probably a bit of a broader term, I guess. But if
yeah,
I'm starting off, what do I do?
what do you? Well, I think the first thing is, as part of the implementation of a management system, you need to understand what's going to be the method for doing those things, for identifying and analyzing and evaluating and treating risks. You need to think about, well, how do we do that? And the question you asked. And the answer is, as far as ISO 27000 is concerned, there's not a fixed answer to that. You do whatever is appropriate to achieve what you need to achieve. It's kind of a rubbish answer, but it's the right answer to say there are lots of models out there. There's no fixed way to do it. You can do whichever you like or you prefer, or whichever works best for you. I would recommend that one of the first things you need to do is understand what information exactly. And we talk about the information as being an asset, of something of value. What is it though? How do you put your finger on it? How do you say this is the information? Is it personal data? Is it that customer relationship management system database? Is it this software library, or what is the information in particular? So having an understanding of your information assets, so then you can understand, well, what harm would befall me or the company if I were to lose that, lose its availability, or if somebody else were able to steal it or modify it in some way, or it disappeared suddenly for some technological reason that I don't get. So understanding all those things, and that's the kind of identification of risk, is to say, if there was a threat, if there was some kind of power cut or a lightning strike or a hack or whatever it would be, and that's the identification of a risk. ISO 27001 says you need to identify your risks through information assets and then find out about them, to analyze the extent of them and the likelihood of their occurrence, and figure out if they are acceptable to you, because the risks might be okay. And then if they're not okay, try to make them acceptable or do something else about it.
So it's not just, I think you said in there, it's not just information being stolen. It can also be information being lost. Is that right? Is that, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. In the information security world, there's this kind of holy trinity, a triad of attributes of information, which are key to understanding information security. And those are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The CIA or the ICA, if you want to do it in a different order or something like that. But confidentiality is that feature of keeping your secret, that you don't allow unauthorized access to your sensitive or valuable information. Availability is about it being actually so you can use it when you need it. It's accessible. You can when you need to look at that database or you need to call that file from somewhere, then you actually can do that, so you can carry on doing your business. It's that important thing. And the other part, the I, for integrity, it means the accuracy and completeness of the information. You perhaps know when you see a printout of something and half of a sentence is missing, it's been truncated, or you try and print something out. Listen to me, old-fashioned, printing things out still. But you know what I mean. When it all you get like some sort of strange alien language. You can't read it. That's no good. It's broken information. That's the other attribute. The information is great. You protected it, but you actually still have the accurate and complete information.
Interesting. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, that does open it up a lot more, doesn't it? Because the days are quite high for an ISMS audit. And
yes, yeah.
I went on one years and years and years ago, but I need to go on another one just to observe, to appreciate it a little bit more. That actually this is quite a broad standard that covers many facets.
Indeed. And ISO 27001 seems so small when you look at it. It's quite compact. There's not really a great deal of it, but there's a lot to it in understanding how it's applied.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned the controls, which I know in Annex A, aren't they, I believe?
Yeah.
At the back of the standard. Do companies need to implement all of them, or just what's appropriate, applicable, or what they want?
Yeah.
Do they get a choice in that?
You do get a choice. It's not like a list. It's not like the Cyber Essentials thing we talked about. Here's a list of things that you need to do, because the use of the controls, or of any controls, is on the basis of, I am already doing that for part of my risk treatment, or I intend to do it as part of my risk treatment. So you only really need them if there is an appropriate risk that needs to be modified in your ISMS model. Now, there's a few things to say about that. One is that it does actually require, in the standard, when you go through risk treatment, you look at the list in Annex A and make sure you haven't missed out anything which is necessary. Okay, so but it is also true to say that there are some controls which just can't be appropriate for some organizations, because you don't have those kind of risks. So some of them are specific to a kind of technological issue or a function that an organization might have, and they're just not ever going to you're not going to have that risk, so you don't have to have that control. So you are allowed to say, yeah, that one doesn't apply to me. I haven't got any appropriate risks to it. But typically, there'll be a fair percentage of them, at least 90% of them, I would guess, that could be applicable to almost any organization. The other thing to say is you actually don't have to use the controls in Annex A as the basis for your risk treatment. You could use some other control set, and there are many about there, depending on industry and your country of origin and where your customers are. There are other control sets which might need to be used, and that's fine. You can use those instead. You still have to do that comparison with Annex A, but your selection of controls could be from some other scheme. Like, what's the one with the credit card payment things? Payment card industry data security standards, and they've got a set of controls. And sometimes organizations have customers in America, so Americans like their national, what is it, NIST, National
Yes, and they've got
Institute.
SOC
So,
2 and things.
well, yeah, that's the financial one.
Yeah.
For
Okay, that's
so
interesting.
you can use all of those schemes and fit them all into ISO 27001, and they all fit within that framework, that skeleton of structure for
Yeah,
an
because
organization.
we use Google Workspace,
Yeah,
and I know they've got a framework for the ideal controls for access. I can't remember what they call it. It's like a checklist, I suppose it is, in how to control the system to make sure or to
right.
prevent hacking and things like that. So I guess that is along those lines that we could say if we were implemented 27, that
Yeah,
this is Google's Workspace recommendations. We've adopted them as part of our controls.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Flexibility in the system, and if, for example, a company has an ISMS, an information security management system in place, and perhaps ISO 27001 certification, wins some new business from a customer in, I don't know, local industry or in the USA or something, and that customer needs a particular set of controls or a particular bit of assurance, it could be fairly straightforward to say, no problem, we'll do the comparison with what we've already got, and we can incorporate that into our ISMS. It's pretty straightforward to do, probably with very little extra effort in terms of changing controls or anything like that. So
Yeah.
hopefully
Okay.
it has that kind of broad coverage.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So what's the typical journey to implementation look like at organisation? It's probably a bit of how long's a piece of string, but
Yeah,
where do
I
they
do.
start? How do they roll it out? How long does it take
Yeah.
roughly?
How long does it take? At a bare minimum, at a sprint, 3 months to get everything in place if it's not too terrible. 6 to 9 months is much more typical, and potentially as long as you like it for very large organizations and with multiple locations and they're more complex. It could be you count it in years rather than months. Typically, we would start with a project and assignment of responsibilities within that project, with half an eye pointing at who's going to be doing this after the project ends. So it's involve people in the project who are also likely to be involved in managing the management system itself and its functions. Okay, the journey. Yeah, the good thing is that most organizations are already doing a fair chunk, if not most, of what's needed for ISO 27001, but perhaps not in a way which it's systematically understood as part of a wider structured approach. And so in terms of changing direction and adding more technology and implementing more controls, that's not too painful for most organizations because they will find that those things are already being done, and perhaps through their supplier like Google or Microsoft or Apple or something, already doing those things for them. It's just about knowing and understanding, yes, there is a risk here, but okay, here's how it's being addressed by my supplier, Apple or Google or whoever. And so having that system and the linkages to show how information is being protected
So is this?
is not
So
so
is it?
bad.
So are you heavily reliant on the IT department or outsourced IT to help you with the implementation, or is it a bit broader than that? You need obviously IT is going to be a big part of it. I understand that.
Yeah, it's a fair chunk of it because of the technological aspect of it. But most organizations, well, I'd say a fair percentage of organizations have a low understanding and low reliance on technology. They use them just as an information machine, or you've got a laptop or a desktop or something, it's connected to the internet. And that's about as much as you know about it, that you know how to send an email or write a letter or access a cloud system on the internet. Does it need IT to do those kind of things? I think probably not. When it comes to the technological side of systems and networks and doing vulnerability updates and patches and things like that. Well, yes, that's the IT and network security teams who would do that kind of thing. But no, it's not too IT heavy. If there is an IT department, and some people still do have their own IT department, if there is one, then yes, they will be involved. The organization is the big part of it, the management system framework.
So you need sort of the leadership team management, same as you ordinarily would in a normal ISO 9001 system, for example.
Yeah, it's fair to say ISO 9001 is normal. It's the oldest, I think, of the standards and probably the grandfather of them all. Yeah, you still need those leadership and people being in charge of the things that happen in their department and controlling that. Yeah.
So where do most organizations get stuck or go wrong? Is there a thing that everyone trips up on? Common.
Yeah, it's so hard to pick. I think the most complex part will be the information security risk management. For those who haven't done risk management at all before, or perhaps information security specific risks, it probably needs a bit of training or understanding or knowledge or use of an expert advisor. Where people go wrong, I think, is more likely in the performance evaluation part of it. What I think is a nice thing about ISO standards is that it gives you great flexibility to apply the standard as you need to for your business model, which is great. But it says things like plan what you need to achieve, or plan to achieve your objectives, and determine how you're going to measure that. Essentially, how do you know you've done it? Where's the dial? Where's the indicator that says yes, you're performing where you need to be? And that's the complex part, I think. Even for the management system framework itself. But that needs to be applied for risk treatments as well, for controls to say, how do you know if your password policy is enough? Are you doing what you said you were going to do when it comes to network security? And then that's difficult to know. So it's that kind of metrology. How do you measure the information security? I think that's the difficult bit, and sometimes it is misunderstood and then therefore sometimes got wrong a little bit.
Yeah, and I suppose if you don't identify the initial risks front end, you're going to miss stuff, and then come the back end, an auditor comes in and says, "What about this?" They go, "Oh, totally missed that." That's where I guess people need to take time to plan and identify the risks.
I know, yeah. I won't name names, but I've been, for example, and audited a software company and asked with their backup. You're thinking to make a backup of things in case it gets lost or broken, and you have a backup. Show me the backup of your source code. Oh, we don't appear to be doing a backup. And this is a software the company. You think there's a big and obvious risk, but yeah, you didn't actually think about that one, or didn't apply it when you did think about it. But that's another good thing about management systems, I think, is that it gives you the opportunity. It tells you to check to do these things and to find out there's something we fixed. Thank goodness we found it. We can make it better now.
Yeah.
And that kind of cycle of improvement is built into it as well.
That's where I think there's benefit to ISO systems and certification. You get fresh eyes coming in that are totally independent of your business, just questions a few things and makes you go, yeah, actually, we did think about it. Because sometimes you're too close to it, aren't you? We all are. We make mistakes here. Everyone does. Because you're just too close to it. Fresh set of eyes come in, just start prodding a little bit. But you're right, it does make you improve. It does. I know we've had someone question our encryption before and things like that. And, we put in a lot of improvements for the better. Cost me a bit of money, but it made me sleep at night.
That's the nice thing, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how can it be practical for small businesses? It does sound like a big standard, a lot of elements to it, a lot of things to control. Yeah. Small businesses implement all of this, or does it get a little bit too much for them?
It can be, and I've seen it done in a business of one person.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it is achievable in a kind of compact way. Like I said, it's scalable. It can apply, the system can work for organizations of 1 to multinational corporations. And actually it's probably easier for the for the small business to do it because it's more compact. For smaller businesses, for kind of micro businesses or less than 50 people, it's probably the easiest model. The downside for small businesses is organizations will no doubt be doing the people changing hats to do roles and other people's roles and to try and juggle different tasks. And that can have long-term problems with management systems generally, I think, but certainly for information security. And smaller organizations are less likely to have their own IT department, their own data security officer or whatever, and specialist in-house. And so the focus then will probably be more on whoever's doing the buying and supply chain management of those who provide services. And I think that's a model which is growing, actually, that organizations don't have their IT department. They may not even have an HR department or, all sorts of things are outsourced and done with partners and other companies and suppliers. That doesn't prevent there being risks. It doesn't prevent the need for managing those, but it might be that the controls that we talked about are being applied through a supplier by another company, perhaps a landlord.
Okay. I guess I could think of a few clients where their HR is done by their parent company, and sometimes the purchasing is as well. So they need to think about those controls.
Yeah.
Don't they, really? Because it's not all controlled in-house.
That's right.
A supplier, for want of a better word, is looking after it. So what's the risk? Cool. So how do you kind of create a culture of security awareness beyond the IT team? So the IT team, I guess, are fairly conscious about it and understand it.
We would hope so.
You would hope so, yeah. So what about everyone else? Because everyone's got a part to play in this standard, haven't they? It's not just the IT department.
Yeah, I think for that, it really needs to come from the top. It needs to be led by the leaders of the organization, the directors, the managing C-suite or whatever. All teams follow the captain and do what the leader says. So that's why it has to come from the top down. How do you develop the culture? Keep training, keep talking about it, make that communication happen, remind people somehow. It's an interesting fact that most information security breaches, the big stories that you hear, that company that went bust a couple of weeks ago, it's like I think they were a shoe company that had been around for since the 19th century and went bust because somebody's login credentials were compromised. And it's a human problem. It's not the IT department that caused that, and it's not a technological failure. Most likely, it's probably because somebody did the post-it note with their username and password on it stuck to the screen.
Which I see a lot. I see that a lot when I'm doing my ISO 9001.
Or they use the same password for everything because that's just and their home things and their work things, and somebody's breached their Facebook or whatever, I don't know, and then thought, well, I'll try out their work account or whatever, and the hacker has been able to get in but this is why you need a culture, because most problems are caused by people, not by computers or
that is true. Yeah, because I think one of the big supermarket ones that got done recently, that was through the help desk, wasn't it, or something? Someone phoned up. Yeah. I think it was something like that, one of them. I remember a story, I can't remember who it was, but it's just someone just phoned up the help desk and just managed to get their information. I'm like, how does that happen? But you're right, it's the human element.
Yeah.
To err is human.
You need that culture. And we talked about it just now, but people need to talk about it around their lunch table or their coffee bar or whatever and say, this is something that can happen. We need a strategy to deal with this. And we have got a strategy and this is what it is. So let's do that.
Once the system is in place and someone's certified, how does maintaining it look? Is there a lot of work to upkeep it, or is it fairly ticking along quite easily?
My instinctive answer is no. It'll just keep purring over like a well-maintained V8 rumbling in the distance. It's for me, maintaining means keeping something going and up to date and fixed. And so, yes, an ISMS needs to be maintained, but I think most often it needs to be maintained because the organization moves and evolves, and this evolution is something that often happens quickly. there is a need to review and to reassess risk on a fairly regular basis, at least annually would be the typical. Or if anything changes, you think of something else, or you change the business model in some way, or adopt a different supplier, then you think about the information risk there as well. So the maintenance is that, and at the technological level, there'll be ongoing things to do with patches and tests and inspections and so on. And there's also the ongoing maintenance of all management systems, which is doing internal audits and checking those performance measures, looking at the dials and making sure everything is all right. So there's that kind of maintenance that goes on. So I don't think it's particularly arduous for information security as opposed to other disciplines or other standards.
It's just a good practice, keeping it going and normal routine activities, really keeping up to date. Unless legislation changes, I suppose.
There's that there. I guess I should mention one particular aspect of information security as a topic is that there also needs to be the reaction part of it. I mean, we've talked about risk management and risk prevention, but there is also this need to be able to respond to incidents. Now, to me, there's a correlation between what is a risk to information and what is an information security incident. And the difference is just the passage of time. So a risk is a potential incident, and sometimes risks are manifested in some way, and then you will have some kind of impact. And it's being able to respond to that and recover from it quickly is an important element of the risk management. So in terms of we were talking about maintenance, there may be the need to jump in every now and again and go, we need our response plan. We're going to have to clean that system and restore from backup or whatever the incident response might be. So there's that aspect of it as well. I suppose that's not really maintenance, that's more kind of emergency response.
That's what made me think about 14,001 and 45,001, which follow the same kind of principles by the sound of it. And then when something does go wrong, or you get an emergency situation where someone's had an accident or a big spillage, then okay, what went wrong? We've got to prevent that from happening again. And so I suppose it follows the same ethos.
Very similar, and to me just makes sense.
Yeah,
really, it's just sensible.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? It's kind of that moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
of course you would. Yeah, okay, interesting. So what's the one piece of advice for a company starting there?
Get a grip on what information assets there are. We talk about an inventory of information assets. It sounds like a really easy thing, or we just write a list of all the information, but it's not that easy, and you need to know what information you have and where it is, who's responsible for it, and before you can even start thinking about, well, what risks does it face? So get that information inventory done pretty soon after you start the project. It's one of the first things that you're going to need. It's really important. Even though if you read the standard chronologically, you wouldn't see it until you're near the end. You need to get into it fairly quickly. So that's my number one top tip. There are models for doing the risk management. There are a lot of tools out there. I think they're almost all software as a service type things now. So it's all cloud services, and a lot of them subscription models. You really need to know that you like the one that you're going to use, if you're going to use it, but that you have confidence that it can help you meet ISO 27001 requirements. And it's not too constraining in the sense that it's designed for some other kind of risk management, and it won't help. But there's nothing wrong with just doing it in a spreadsheet or a kind of homemade tool. Doing risk management is a kind of complex and specialist task. Another top tip associated with that is that it doesn't have to be scientific in outcome. The reason for using the risk management model in the ISMS, in my view, is to inform an appropriate level of risk treatment. And so it doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be kind of measured to a 0.1 of a penny of what the impact would be if there was a loss of availability for half an hour. You don't have to be that detailed about it. So fairly low definition risk management, enough so you can have informed judgments about managing risks.
Okay.
So don't try and get too into the weeds with the risk management.
No, that's good advice, because in the aerospace ski, we've got an operational risk, which sounds very similar. And some people just get so complicated with it, the whole scoring, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Just step back. Keep it simple, guys.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
know
yeah.
exactly what you're looking at.
Yeah, just understand why you're doing it, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they'll tell you don't need to get so
definitely
excited. Okay, good.
Brilliant. Okay, well, it's been really interesting. I know I've learned quite a bit.
Terrific.
And I'm sure we'll jump on another one just to get a bit more detailed in certain areas, because it's definitely a standard I'm not 100% aware of.
Yeah.
So, more
Perhaps
knowledge
we
helps
can go into more about the controls next time, perhaps, and talk about how.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. Yeah, learn a bit more about that. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Brilliant. Okay, super. Thanks for your time, Ian, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Bye-bye.